almost like you're working just for the sake of work, just so you can work. Like it's not an overarching reason to it. It's not we're working in order to make sure people have the supplies that they need, which should really be the point of any kind of work in a society. It's you're just working just to work, and it's bizarre. It's pretending as if the planet is not finite. It's pretending like you've come up with this situation where you have like all of the poverty, and the poverty is completely unnecessary. Or you have people who don't have things that they need, even though you have factories churning out like 1,000 T-shirts in a minute. Like it doesn't make sense. The goods and the supplies don't necessarily get to the people who need them. It gets to the people who can afford them, and that is a bizarre society to have, and we agree to it
Gabor Mate
implicitly.
has a great example where he says, if there's a billionaire somewhere who wants a golden toilet seat and he has the money to pay for it, but then there's kind of like a starving family somewhere else, and they need they need food and medical care. Where are society's resources going to go?
Yeah. That's
under
amazing. That's
go
amazing.
towards the person, and so you replicate that, you multiply that times a billion, and you get our society.
I mean,
there is absolutely no connection between human needs and the distribution of resources, and that's insane. It's insane.
6 people has half of the world's wealth, or has more wealth than the half of the world, or something.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 people now.
Yeah, that's insane. Like there's, or you end up in this other thing where I think the stats said like 60% of the world's population makes like under $10 a day, where you have like a good 25% that only has 2. Like this is a problem. Like I understand people are raised in a particular system, but what those people need to realize is that's no one was here to give anybody anything. Like there's no situation where somebody said, here, I'm giving you all of this land, meaning the first guy, the first man, the first person to realize that I'm a human being. Nobody gave him anything. The resources on this planet, fundamentally, just from a philosophical standpoint, belongs to all of the people on this particular planet. Anything that was taken was stolen, or essentially killed in order to get with governments and everything instantiating their authority once those things were settled, meaning we've taken this, we've stolen this, and now we have a government here that's going to enshrine our particular advantage into law. You fast forward X number of hundreds of years, and it's like, well, this is normal. That's not normal. Those resources were taken and stolen, and they instituted a process that would allow them to instantiate their gains or hold on to their gains. You, being a human being, growing up in a particular system, has a value system based on what's fair, based on the system itself. Meaning the system that was enshrined to keep things a particular way, your value system is based purely on that. So your judgment on this, it's like you look at what's his name with $100 billion, and you're like, well, he got that in this particular system, so I mean, he got it in a fair and honest way. But the larger question is, should your system allow any one human being to have $100 billion in the first place? Particularly if you have anybody in that system who's not having health care. I did a story the other day where this woman got thrown out of a hospital at night. She was wearing a nightgown and slippers because she didn't have the money to pay for her hospital bill. They literally tossed her out at night. The security guards just walked back as if they didn't do anything. This system is the problem. Like, it's hard to get that across. Not only is the system destroying the planet, literally destroying the planet, that's not hyperbole. The system is destroying the planet. It's also destroying us. This level of inequality that's obscene. And anybody in their right mind, if you had some other species that was looking at this from outside of our planet system, they would think we were insane. It was like, what justification did you guys come up with? What con did you guys accept that would allow the resources on that planet, those resources who weren't given to anybody, that was literally for everybody? What game, what con did you accept that would allow one of you to have that much while others have little to nothing? That it is an amazing thing that a system would allow this. And it's even that much more amazing that the 99% looks at this and says, okay, that's fair. That's fair. This should not be allowed. That should not be allowed. And this is to some degree the failure of politics, and to some degree the win of politics. I mean, if you're looking at politics being this thing that allows this particular thing to be enshrined in the way it is and to keep order and to maintain the status quo. If you look at government as being this kind of like Lenin will call it this class antagonism. Like the whole point of government is to maintain the antagonism between the classes of the rich and the poor. If you look at it through that lens, it's maintain a certain status quo based on the way things are. I would argue, though, that politics needs to go beyond that. And in some degree, there needs to get something to put a fire in the people to understand, for those people to understand that A, they've been exploited. B, there is no reason that the resources should be distributed in the way that resources are distributed. And C, that they have value. And not only do they have value, they should look at themselves at a higher level than what they look at themselves. And I'm on a tangent, but if you look at the people in Europe, let's say somebody in Germany, just a regular person in Germany, they're not concerned about healthcare. They're not concerned about college. Of all the things that may assail that person as a human being, there are two things that are not: college and healthcare. At very bare bones, their society says, look, we want, at the very least, that person to be somewhat self-actualized. We, as a society, want to give that person an opportunity to do that. We don't want to put them $50,000 in debt. We don't want to create debt slaves in our society. That does not make a good German citizen. That does not make a good citizen at all. We want you to have a bare bones, basic level of existence in operating in our society. That's how they see themselves. If the German counselor, if Merkel came out and said, you know what, we're going to start putting $50,000 of debt on the kids, and yeah, you're going to stop paying for your health care. As a society, we're no longer going to help with that, meaning we're not going to cover ourselves for health care. They would have riots in Germany. They would burn that place to the ground because they, at the very least, look at themselves as being worth enough where, as a society, they want to take care of themselves in that way. We as a society don't do that. Like, well, when you have a debate and you have some members in the audience saying, let them die on the street, that is abysmal. That gives us idea of what we see ourselves as human beings as being worth, our value as human beings, as compared to other human beings. It needs to change, man. And if that's done through the political apparatus, fair enough. Do you believe that's something that can be done through politics, or do you believe that's something that needs to be done outside of the political system?
I think that something can be done through the political system, and I don't think it's a neat boundary between the two either.
Hmm.
I think that by starting a people's party and a coalition of the left, and an electoral system, within the electoral system that we have, then I think if it is, say it's true that not even it can succeed. Say the electoral system is so controlled, that not it couldn't succeed either in the Democratic Party or in a new party. Perhaps that's true. But even if that's true, it will take exhausting all of the options basically until you reach that point. And so it's kind of like, okay, we have exhausted the Democratic Party as a potential vehicle for achieving progressive politics and a sane economy in politics. And so, all right, we are going to try basically starting a new party. And that will in itself, it will build a social movement, around that, and it will help also serve as an extension to the social movements that exist, giving them an electoral wing, so to speak, and it'll be born from them. But even if say that doesn't succeed, then at that point you would know, I think that, you would need just some kind of drastic direct action, to change things, like, for example.
Go ahead, say it. We're adults. We can say it. You're adults.
Huh?
Go ahead, say it.
What?
Drastic action. You're using euphemisms. You're saying at that point you're talking about leaving outside the political apparatus to make change.
Yeah, I'm not talking about violent revolution though.
No. I don't mean it that
less
way.
effective. What I'm talking about is for what was done in the 30s, for example. So what was done in the 30s is you had the bonus army. It was many thousands of soldiers from World War I who hadn't been compensated, hadn't been paid by the government. And in the midst of the Depression, they occupied Washington, D.C. And and that was very menacing, basically, to the establishment. And that's kind of a similar thing, which I think we should do. If nothing kind of electorally was to work, is I think Occupy Wall Street did a lot of good things. It put inequality on the map, but it could have gone a lot further. And I think the focus was also off. I think it could have institutionalized into a party, kind of like Podemos did from the M14 movement in similar circumstances. and now it's had great success in Spain. But we didn't do that. And that's why we need to build electoral institutions, as independent electoral institutions. But another thing that I think was off is that it targeted Wall Street. Wall Street is private. It's a collection of private institutions. Right now, a court, as the system is structured, and this is obviously also a problem, but we're not supposed to have any influence in those, institutions. Corporations, in political terms, are straight up tyrannies. There's no internal democracy. The orders go straight down. The profits go straight up. And there's no election of leadership. But we do have an institution. Human beings have fought and advanced human rights sufficiently that we have an institution now that is supposed to be theoretically under public control, and that is the government. And so that's what we need to occupy, because that's the institution which is supposed to be running things and which is supposed to be also under our control. So I think an Occupy movement in Washington, D.C., just like the bonus army, is much more effective. And that's what I mean by direct action.
I see. And the irony of that is, and Democrats too, Democrats more so for the fact, weakness, have gotten people to believe that government is a problem. Like in their mind, they're completely missing this point. Libertarians make this argument too, this insane argument that the problem in this is government. Not completely missing the fact that your influence, the only influence that you have in any of these political bodies or any of these bodies is government. That private corporation, that private citizen that they prize and all this other stuff, that guy can draw a line on the map, and the police that are paid for with tax dollars will beat you in the head to keep you out of that particular line. Your influence in this is the political apparatus, meaning government. Occupy Wall Street. Yeah, man, it was euphoric and at the same token disappointing.
Corporations, in political terms, are straight up tyrannies. There's no internal democracy. The orders go straight down. The profits go straight up. And there's no election of leadership. But we do have an institution. Human beings have fought and advanced human rights sufficiently that we have an institution now that is supposed to be theoretically under public control, and that is the government. And so that's what we need to occupy, because that's the institution which is supposed to be running things and which is supposed to be also under our control. So I think an Occupy movement in Washington, D.C., just like the bonus army, is much more effective. And that's what I mean by direct action.
I see. And the irony of that is, and Democrats too, Democrats more so for the fact, weakness, have gotten people to believe that government is a problem. Like in their mind, they're completely missing this point. Libertarians make this argument too, this insane argument that the problem in this is government. Not completely missing the fact that your influence, the only influence that you have in any of these political bodies or any of these bodies is government. That private corporation, that private citizen that they prize and all this other stuff, that guy can draw a line on the map, and the police that are paid for with tax dollars will beat you in the head to keep you out of that particular line. Your influence in this is the political apparatus, meaning government. Occupy Wall Street. Yeah, man, it was euphoric and at the same token disappointing. We just want a decentralized structure, man. And it's like, yes, but the goal is to get shit done. The goal is not to have this hippie party and show your frustration and outrage. It's to get something done. It's to coalesce into something that has this kind of political might and political influence. And the sad part about it is, under a Democratic president, crushed, as opposed to becoming something significant or pushing him forward and all this other stuff. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. All right, Nick, it's almost been 2 hours. Oh, it has been 2 hours. I give one last comment, just in case you want to say something to the audience or anybody else on this particular topic. I open the floor to you.
Well, thanks for having me on. I invite everybody, come and join us and be a part of founding it this year, founding a People's Party. Come join us in building the coalition. That's what we're doing right now. and come and join us in all of the other different areas, that we need help as well. I think this is kind of, what we're doing here is historic, and we are following the model in which it has been done successfully before, the Republican Party, but also in the way that any kind of progressive landmark milestone achievement has been achieved in our own history of all those other things. So yeah, so besides that, it's great to talk to you, Jamarl.
And what's the website one more time, just so people would know?
It's forapeoplesparty.org.
And I would say if anyone has connections to some of the other progressive organizations, and if anyone in that progressive organization, or if anyone is in the progressive organization itself that wants to be part of the coalition, I would say contact Nick also.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to talk to you guys. And there's a form on the website, which is for any particular organization which would like to join us. And you can also reach out to us at organize@forapeoplesparty.org. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
we'd love to have.
Nick, I appreciate you coming on, man. I am sorry for interrupt. I'm bad at that. I try to get better at it. Sometimes there's a space or there's a gap in the way that the communication is. So I think that there's a lag, in which case I start talking about it. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. I think what you're doing is an awesome thing, and I fully support it. So I appreciate your time and everyone else's time for coming on for Nick to have a conversation about this. So I'm going to end it here. Yeah, guys, thank you for coming on, and you guys have a good night. Thanks,
Wonderful
guys.
talking to you.
All right.